Jackie. Welcome to the Teacher Biz podcast.
Hi there, nice to meet you.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you started your business and then a little bit about what your business is now?
So I was a high school teacher for over 16 years. So that's, mostly in the classroom. I did get promotions as I was working through it, but it was really about learning my trade, learning how to be a good teacher and, really developing my love of working with children. I've always wanted to be a teacher anyway. So it was really picking up all the tips and tricks that make you a good teacher, but really focusing on how the student progresses. So I was really doing that, but at the same time I was doing that, I was mum to three gorgeous children, and they went through the stages of from infant school. In fact, my first day at my first school, my youngest Joshua started infant school. So we kind of started together, and then the three of them sort of went all through school as I was working full time, and that was tricky, getting up at 5:30 in the morning, going to bed at midnight for nearly 16 years. That takes a toll. But when I was able to, I realized that actually, I wanted to be more specific. So I wanted to really work with children that were perhaps that invisible child in the classroom, and really focusing on that, and helping parents with homeschooling. And I'd started to really look into that. Well, I was thrown into homeschooling myself when my son was very young. Now that was before I started.
So tell us about how you got thrown into homeschooling, because I know we have a lot of homeschooling parents who are interested in maybe starting an online business on the side that might be interested in that part of your story too. So tell us about the homeschooling journey.
So this was before I was a teacher myself. Like I said, I'd always wanted to be a teacher, but it had never happened for me. And I was mum to Luke, who was 4, and I was pregnant with Isabel, and Luke got very ill. And he was ill for many years, and he had leukemia, he had a bone marrow transplant, and with all that, even when he wasn't in hospital, he still wasn't able to go to school a lot of the time. So I think overall it was sort of 3 to 4 years of schooling that he missed. I don't want to use the word luckily because, obviously luck doesn't really come into that story, but he was very young. So he missed, um, obviously I'm in the UK, infant and junior school is a lot of the schooling that he missed. So that's when I was homeschooling. But I remember thinking, even at that time, because in the hospital there was lots of teenagers on the ward, and I remember thinking that is a really awful time to be missing out on your schooling. And of course, when you're thrown into that as a parent, the last thing you're worried about is missing school. You
Yeah.
just want your child to be well, and to focus on that. Um, so when Luke started back to school, and life started to get back to normal, because believe me, when your child um, has cancer, you're kind of thrown into that cancer world, and that took over our life for many years. And the homeschooling was kind of part of that, but it wasn't the most important part of that at the time. Um, but I realized I really wanted to fulfill the dream of becoming a teacher. That had really awakened that in me. The times that Luke and I had spent um, times doing lessons. I mean, I was only able to really do English and history with him because that's my specialty. We
Mhm.
had a lovely lady come in from the local authority who did science with him and did some lovely projects with him and did some maths with him. So, we had that as well. But I did, the whole time I was, you know, working and just doing, my full-time job. The children were at school. Life was normal, life was good. We were just doing what everybody, what millions of other people do. All the time at the back of my mind, I was thinking, there are people out there who are thrown into this homeschooling at all sorts of different ages. And what do they do? I'm not talking about people that their dream is to homeschool their child, because that's great and I love that. But, they invariably don't always need help. They might need help with lessons. I'll talk in a bit about how there will come a time when they will need help. But it's for the people where it's, they're just thrown into this world that they've never even contemplated, and they kind of need some fairy godmother or somebody to help them through those initial days. So when I was in a position that I didn't need financially, I didn't need to be working, like I said, 5:30 to midnight every day. When things eased off on that side of my life, the children were grown up. Um, and I was able to step back from working full time, I decided actually I was going to leave working in a school and develop my own business. And I did a lot of tutoring initially because, just to get the business going. Because I wasn't in a position I didn't need to earn any money. So obviously there was the tutoring was helping with that. But always in the back of my mind, I knew that I really wanted to help those people that had been plunged into that situation. And it really worries me or bothers me that they're out there still and they don't know where I am and I don't know where they are. And I really want to do something about that because, I've got so much I can offer them. So um, at the same time that I was doing the teaching in school and being a mum and a wife and all those other things, um, I was also working for the major exam boards, and I started off as an examiner, and then a team leader, then assistant principal, and I'm now principal examiner, and I still do that. I love that. Um, and an offshoot of that is that I train teachers. I go into schools both in the UK and internationally. Um, and I actually work with the teachers to make sure that they understand the specification. They can help their students get the best results they can in the exams.
I
So
love that
that's
you share that because I find that many teachers have more than one thing that they do. And so they get stuck when they're trying to decide what their online business should be about. Should it be about this thing that I can do or this other thing that I can do? And so many of us have more than one skill. Um, and so I think that's interesting that you share that. There's this, principal examiner thing that I do, and I love that. But also my business is centered on helping homeschool families because that's my passion too. I just think that's really helpful for other teachers to hear as they think through these things. So thank you for sharing that. How do you help and support homeschool parents specifically in your business? So what kinds of things do you offer them? Um, and how do you help them?
well, there's obviously the tutoring. So I specifically tutor English and history.
To the
And
students or to the parents who are going to help their students?
well, actually both, but to the students, I will do lessons. So
Okay.
actually tutoring lessons, and that's English and history. And I tend to focus on students that are approaching their exams. But I quite often then will get their siblings who are younger and perhaps struggling with certain bits of English or history, and I would teach them as well. So that kind of is a knock-on effect from that. But I would promote teaching students that are going to be taking exams. Um, in terms of helping the parents, yeah, I've got lots on my website. There's loads of information there, blogs about how to help your child, and I'm all about teaching and learning. I don't offer any advice on the legality of homeschooling and what you need to do and how you need to do it because I don't have that expertise and I don't know that.
Yeah.
So I would just say, approach your local authority and go and find out about that. I'm
Let
all
me call that out for my listeners too, because that's so brilliant. You don't have to be able to cover every single thing related to your topic in order to talk about the thing that you're good at. You can send people elsewhere. That's an okay thing to do. And you can focus in on what you're specifically good at. I love that.
Well, I love that too, because that actually is a really good point when you're helping parents approach their homeschooling, because they're going to have their own unique way of teaching their child. But the most important thing to know is that you don't need to know everything. You just need to know how to find out how to help them. So if your child wants to learn French or play the piano or whatever it is they want to do, it doesn't mean you've got to know how to do that. You just need to know how to find out about it and how to plan to help them. And why not learn together? I've got a great blog post on that where it's all about how to learn how to, ballroom dance or play the piano or play the trumpet or whatever it is. Learn together.
Hmm.
That's fantastic.
That
Yeah.
sounds so fun. I love
Yeah.
that.
So I've got I mean, for homeschooling parents that want to just start out, I've got like a toolkit that they can have, which is, full of all sorts of things that they can use. So to start with, and they can take out bits they want and bits they don't. So one of the things is a homeschooling equipment checklist. Now you might not need that, so that's fine. On the other hand, you might be thinking, I don't know what on earth I'm going to need. So it's like a shopping list. Great. All the things that I think, and and these are personal recommendations from me. These are, I don't get any I'm not affiliated at all to anything. I don't get any there's no promotion there apart from the fact that I've used these things and I've found them to be really good. Um, but equally what's in there is how to plan lessons, how to timetable. And I mean when you're homeschooling, especially if your child isn't well, you might not be able to do that many lessons a week. You can work that out yourself. So all of the stuff that I offer them is adaptable, so they can tweak it however they want to. But there's all sorts of things for them that I've over the years I found to be helpful. Um, Music. Now, I'm not musical at all. And in fact, anyone that knows me, if they were listening to this, would laugh if they thought I'm offering any advice about music. But what I do know is what is nice calming music at the beginning of lessons, especially if your child is a bit hyper that day or doesn't seem ready to settle. So it's all about these kind of tips and tricks that I've learned over the years, really. So um
I love that.
one
Okay, there's a few things I want to call out here that are so great. But tell us more about your products because I know my listeners will be interested in this. I think it's very smart that you started with a low price product to help your ideal community. That's what I teach my students to do too. So what is the price point and how do you generally sell that?
So I sell that on the website. I have done Facebook advertising in the past, which did work. A little bit, but I'd like to talk to you a bit about that later because that would link into mistakes that I've made big time.
Mm,
So it did work, and I was able to grow my list from 0 to nearly 1,000 subscribers. So it's not huge, but it was better than 0. And
yeah.
okay, and that was offering like, a checklist and some help to get your day started. And then my low price was 90 or still is £19. So I think that probably equates to what, $17, something like that. I'm not,
Love that price point.
yeah.
And
So
so you were offering a freebie, a free
yes.
resource, and then it redirected to a tripwire offer.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Perfect. I love that.
And I had to, I went to a graphic designer and it was and I love how it looks. I still do, we're a couple of years on. I love how that looks. Um, but there are changes I would make now, sort of going back.
Mm.
And I we'll talk about that in a bit about things um that I would maybe change. Um, and what I want to do, see, is build a community. So I want to go on to having a membership
Mm.
where, and I think this is really important, where parents can support each other, or anyone that is caring for a young person that is suddenly thrown into homeschooling as a teenager. You're going to need support. You just even somebody that says, "Yeah, I know what you're going through,"
Hmm.
because the likelihood is your community, your friends and family, as supportive as they are, they're not going to know what you're going through. And that is something that I know personally from experience. And I mean, that just took me back then, even though it was a long time ago. And really, I have difficulty talking about what happened to Luke because it did happen to Luke. It's Luke's
Mm.
story, it's my son's story. And, um, but I think as a family of 5, we've all got parts of that. We've all got our own stories. Even Joshua, who was born kind of afterwards, would have still had an impact on him at some point. So I think if we're looking at it, from my my point of view, yeah, having somebody to talk to would just be brilliant. And of course, back then there wasn't online.
Hmm.
Now it's just, 3 o'clock in the morning, if you just can't sleep and you've got this question in your mind, I don't know what to do. My daughter really wants to take her history GCSE. I don't know anything about this, and you can just get some support. And I think that's brilliant. So that's what I want to offer. And I have a real bugbear about this as well. Is a point when you need to have somebody that knows how to do the exam system and how the exams work. And it's great if somebody's got a first from Cambridge in history. Hats off to them. That's fantastic. Doesn't necessarily mean they know how to approach that exam. And the chances are somebody that is so good at history that they've got a first from Cambridge is going to be pitching far too high for a teenager, and the teenager's not really going to understand what's going on anyway.
Hmm.
So it does frustrate me enormously when when people are like, yeah, I've got a great tutor who's charging this much and it's fantastic and I don't mind how much it's costing, and I think, yeah, but do they know how to do this exam?
Hmm.
You know, that bothers me a
I
lot.
love that you're aiming towards a membership. I think that all online businesses really should be aiming towards some sort of recurring income. I think your business really lends itself to that. I don't know if you know, but I have a membership myself on both sides of my business. And that really, especially on the kindergarten ready side, is the bread and butter of that business. That's where everyone is aimed towards. And it's been a beautiful thing. And there's not a community for that one as much on the teacher biz side there is. I don't think for my business it's as necessary, but for yours, it makes such perfect sense. And if you can combine that with maybe group coaching, which I think would also be a beautiful thing, I think that just makes so much sense. Um, and yeah, I definitely want to talk to you about how I would position that in your funnel as well. But I love it. I just think that she's not there yet. She knows she has this vision where her business is going. It makes perfect sense in alignment with all of the other things that she has already in place in her business. Um, and just to be that person to support them and to create this community because there's that value in that too, that I want our listeners to hear. Connecting other people that need the support of one another who are in that same position, there's such value in that, even if you're not the ones providing the support to them. And I think if you could do both, all the better. So I love that.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And I've kind of, you talked about the funnel. I mean, I'm almost ready to go. I've got my pathway
Mm,
of how parents will work through that with me, all mapped out. So we
I love
can
it.
go on that.
Tell us what has been tricky for you in your business and maybe how you've overcome that.
Um, Technology. I mean, and really that has been the one thing, and that's helped me as a teacher as well, because you know, um, I was always an avid reader and I loved history, and I'd stand up in front of these young people in the classroom and my passion would come out and they'd all be learning. And I was super supportive to people that didn't get it, but I didn't get why they didn't get it. I was just supportive to it and worked through that as a teacher. But what I've been through with the business over the last 5 or 6 years, and the blocks I've had with technology, has nearly broken me. And there have been times where I felt nobody understood what I was saying, and I would be asking the questions, and nobody was understanding, and that really taught me a lot as a teacher. And I was able to take from that. But technology has been the huge, almost a deal breaker for me. There have been times Facebook ads. There came a point where I nearly thought I have to walk away from this because I don't know how to do this. And I followed programs, and I've gone through and I've tried to do things step by step, but somewhere along the line I've missed something or I've not got it. And that has had a huge negative impact because links were broken, things weren't working, connecting my website to my email service provider, to my freebies or whatever. and things were broken that I didn't know. So months would go by and I didn't know things weren't working. And this has just constantly been there for me. And it was only recently that I found Megan from Wicked Easy Tech, and it was purely by chance. I'd heard of her and I'd seen her in a group that I'm in, and she always struck me because she was always asking great questions, and she seemed so vibrant, and I really liked her, but I didn't realize that she could help me until I saw that she'd set up this company, Wicked Easy Tech. I contacted her, and finally, Heather, honestly, finally, I think I found my fairy godmother, because she, I assume it's done. And then I've been burnt by so many people of, I really have people telling me they can do it when they can't. And I don't know that. But she shows me everything she's doing. She teaches me, here's a video on how to do that if you need to do it yourself. And it's just fabulous. So that was a big thing. Now I appreciate a lot of people get the tech, and that
Let me just
locally.
mention for a quick second, I want to jump in and say that Megan is on the Teacher Biz podcast on episode 60. If anyone wants to hear that one, she talks about overcoming early tech struggles. And, the tech is a struggle for so many of us, especially when we start. No one knows what they're doing with the tech. We are teachers, we're not technical. So there absolutely is a learning curve. But if it feels like it's holding you back beyond that, I think outsourcing, finding someone to help you specifically is a great idea. In my signature program, Teacher Biz Blueprint, we have Maria comes in for us. She's our team member who helps with the tech, and we do tech coaching calls with people where they can share their screen and troubleshoot things, which has been so helpful to students. But you need that support. You need to find a place to go or someone who can help you so that you don't stay stuck there and you can push through that. You don't have to do everything alone, even if you're a solo business owner. And finding the right people to help, I think, is such a smart idea to push through those struggles.
Yeah, 100%. Another thing that I struggle with, I think a lot of people struggle with, is imposter syndrome. And, you know, just who am I? What? And I'm getting better at that. And I haven't had that too badly, but it is there, like a little voice sometimes. And it can make you procrastinate and just think, oh, well, maybe I won't do that today or whatever. And I think that's happened a lot. Am I too old? I'm heading for six. Well, I'll be 60 in August, and you just think, well, am I too old? And in fact, Jamie Lee Curtis really, it was like she slapped me in the face. She's got this brilliant clip. I saw it as a reel on Instagram where she's talked about all the things she's done in the last 2 years since she turned 60. And she just really made me feel, yeah, of course I can do this. Of course I can. And that really helped.
100%. I think imposter syndrome is a thing that happens to almost every new online business owner when they're getting started. We have those thoughts, and pushing through that is vital to getting your business off the ground because you will be holding yourself back in your own head. I can say that episode 58 of the Teacher Biz podcast is about overcoming imposter syndrome as a new online business owner. It happens to all of us. You're not alone. I think just hearing that, I think so, I ask that question a lot. What's been tricky for you in your business? And so many of the people I interview say that imposter syndrome is the thing. So just hearing that and hearing that everyone feels that way. So let's just keep going here, I think is really helpful too. So, Jackie, tell us how you usually find your customers now. You mentioned you tried Facebook ads. Um, what else have you been doing? And you have a blog, which we kind of brushed a little bit past that. So how do you find new customers in your business? I imagine there's also some word of mouth in there as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Facebook, yes, sometimes, mostly repeat business, word of mouth, siblings coming, once the older ones have gone. Um, Most of my business comes through that. I've got the website, so I do get business through that. And I think Facebook has slowed down somewhat since I stopped doing the advertising, but I do get from posts that I was doing. I haven't been posting for the last few months, but that's about to change.
Love that. What advice would you give to a teacher who's listening right now and thinking about starting their online business and probably having a lot of those same thoughts that you were having, what would you say to them?
Seriously, I wish I could tell myself this 5 years ago. Don't seek perfection. Just do it. Just, get on and do it. Do something every day. Just don't wait. Don't wait about thinking. And that's what kind of sucked me in. So don't just get your ideas out there and just do a little bit every day, and you'll see how quickly it will build up. Definitely.
I love that. And I think perfectionism is another thing that really comes for us, especially as teachers. We want an A plus on everything that we do, and that will keep you stuck forever. I am a recovered perfectionist myself. I spent years just spinning in circles, trying to redoing work, doing things over and over again, trying to make it all perfect. And you don't make any progress that way. So progress over perfection every day of the week. I like to shout that from the rooftops over here.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that has been a big problem for me. Yeah, I've got to get that right. And as teachers, you see, it's such a, it is a worry. For example, what if there's a spelling mistake in there? What if there's a typo? Who's going to want to come to me as a teacher if I've put a typo? It's getting over things like that. It
Mhm.
really is.
100%. I have sent emails with typos and on both sides of my business and it happens because I'm not going to spend all day proofreading. And I've had a nasty reply or two from that as well. I mean, people who have nothing better to do than actually reply to an email if they have something negative instead of deleting it and moving on with their life. But on the teacher biz side, I will reply to those and let people know that I'm trying to teach people how to run a business imperfectly and actually get things done in their business. And sometimes there's typos. I'm not really concerned with that. What I want to do is actually help you. And if the content is helpful, I think we can overlook anything else that's in there with that.
100%. Yeah, I agree with that, definitely.
This has been so helpful, Jackie. Tell us what you're working on right now, what you're excited about, and also where people can find you online.
So I'm working on my Ackerman Home Learning Teach Path. So this is going to be the community that I'm going to be launching. So they'll I'm going to start doing that on Instagram and Facebook. Um, it Towards the end of March, I think there'll be a sort of big launch, and I'll start promoting that over the next few weeks. So I'm very excited about that. Um, and my website is still there. If people want to find me, I've got lots of lessons that they can use, that they can see on the website. They're all there. So that's ackermanhomelearning.co.uk.
And we'll put that link right in the show notes so people can find you easily too.
Yeah. But I'm more than happy to answer any questions that anybody's got. If you're, worried about anything, I would love to help you. I really would. That's what I get my biggest sort of kick from, I suppose, is when I can see that I've made a difference, and I've brought just happiness to a family where they're in the perhaps despair and don't know where to turn. So that's nice, because this is only a small part of what they're going through. But if I can make that easier for them, obviously that helps.
I love that. I imagine you will have some homeschooling listeners reaching out to you after we air this show because what a perfect fit. Thanks so much, Jackie. It was so nice to talk to you. Have a
Thank you. Bye.
bye.